Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are really excited to have you all here. We know you're all getting connected to audio, but I will just start getting started with some of the boring stuff first. So I'm Sarah Chapman, and I'm the executive director of the nonprofit Media Burn Archive, which is based in Chicago. Media Burn collects, preserves, and distributes documentary and experimental media produced by artists, activists, and community groups. Our mission is to create positive social change by amplifying underheard voices, both in contemporary dialogue and the historical record. And this event is part of an ongoing free series called Virtual Talks with Video Activists, which creates conversations surrounding media production. Sorry, they're every 2 weeks on Thursdays. And if you enjoy this event, please keep coming. Our next one is in 2 weeks with activist filmmaker Judy Hoffman. So tonight we are pleased to be presenting a screening of works produced through the Women in Prison program of Beyondmedia Education, which was a nonprofit founded by Salome Chasnoff that operated between 2000 and 2013. And if you like the videos we show tonight, you can watch more of them on mediaburn.org. We have Beyond Media's full archive. So search for Beyond Media, which is all one word, and you will find those videos. So we're very honored and pleased to have 3 filmmakers with us today: Brenda Myers-Powell, Joanne Archibald, and Diana Delgado, who will be in discussion afterwards. Salome has also joined us too, which is great. So we welcome your participation in the discussion, but first we're going to show excerpts from 2 films that the total is about 25 minutes of footage. And while we're screening the films, please stay muted so that everyone can hear. You can write questions in the chat anytime during the screening or anytime afterwards. And during the discussion period, you're also welcome to raise your hand and just talk out loud, be in dialogue with everyone. So captions are available. If you go to the bottom of your screen and you look for the more button, the ... and click that, a little thing will pop up that'll say captions. If you click that, you'll be able to see captions. And what else? The event is being recorded. And so if you miss a little bit of it or you enjoy it so much you want to share it with other people, you will be able to do that. And everyone who registered tonight will receive an email with the link to that recording, hopefully tomorrow, maybe Monday, if not. And I wanted to also point out that this event was curated and coordinated by our fabulous intern, Dana Buckoy, who is a student at Columbia College Chicago. It's the capstone of the summer she has spent with us, watching videos, cataloging them, and creating collection descriptions. Today is her last day, so this is a really great way to end the summer with her. And she wrote the introduction to the program that I'm going to read to you now. And the instruction says, we don't often see accurate representation or discussion of women's experiences with the carceral system or the sex work industry in the media. If we do see it, it's usually romanticized or exploitative. The reality as seen in these 2 films can be harsh and hard to bear witness to. The films produced by Beyond Media have something that other representation of these topics in media don't, which is that the stories are told entirely from the perspective of the women involved. In sharing their stories, these women offer nuance and a unique insight into the reality of these situations. So we are now going to play you excerpts from Turning a Corner and Voices in Time. And afterwards, we will have a discussion.
This is an installation of a prison cell, what the women go through, what I myself experienced, and it's pretty lifelike. It's so lifelike, it kind of gives me flashbacks. The brick is what we saw every day. When we go to sleep, this is what we see, and when we wake up, this is what we see. We have 3 different TV sets, and on these TV sets are interviews of formerly incarcerated women. They're telling their life story because it's a lot that happens even before the woman becomes incarcerated.
Nobody seen or heard my pain or helped me deal with it, so I figured if I couldn't get what I needed from my family, I started looking elsewhere, but in the wrong places. I got pregnant the first time I had a relationship. I got pregnant at 15. I gave birth to my first son at 15, and he passed away 2 months later of crib death. And I felt like the world had it in for me, because I had lost my mother a couple years before that, and then here I had a baby, and I felt like, okay, I felt like the baby was going to be, my first son was going to be able to fill that void, what was missing from my not having the relationship with my mother no more. And then when he died, it was like my whole world just crumbled. And that was when I first introduced myself to drinking and drugging. And then I met my kid's father, my older son's father. I met him not that long afterwards, and that was the biggest mistake of my life. I met him, he's a couple years older than me. He had a position in the gang that he was in. He had a lot of pull, a lot of clout, so I thought at the time. I was fascinated by him being able to tell other people what to do, and they did it. And he was a drug dealer. He had money. He had the nice car. He had the jewelry. So I was like, okay, this is my escape from the family who was blaming me already for my son's death. And so this is my way out. This is my ticket to get away from my family. I didn't know that 2 months later he was going to start beating me up. I got pregnant right away, and I was really scared about having another baby. I didn't want no more kids after I lost my son, but from him beating me up so bad, I miscarried my first couple pregnancies with him. The first pregnancy, the beatings weren't that bad. He slapped me, pulled my hair, pushed me, and I thought it was because he loved me at the time, because I seen my father do it to my mother. And the slaps turned into punches, and the punches turned into me being passed out from him choking me, from him choking me to him shooting at me, from him, putting me in the hospital. About 3 o'clock in the morning, they came banging and kicking in my door. And I opened the door, and the police told me that I needed to come down to the police station for questioning. They ransacked my house, took me and my 2 boys to the police station, and I'd never been in trouble before, so I really didn't know nothing about the system or how the system worked. But they told me if I signed a statement, mind you, I was 7 months pregnant, I was spotting. They had my 2 children in an enclosed room with the door shut by themselves at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I could hear them crying for me. And they told me if I signed a statement that they would let me call somebody to pick my kids up. If not, that they were going to call DCFS and they were going to take my kids from me. So I did what I thought was the best thing for my kids. I signed a statement so I could call somebody to pick my children up. So I signed the statement, which I signed my life away when I signed that statement, because that statement was saying that I was an accomplice. After I got sentenced, I felt like I was stripped of everything, because I knew it was going to be another 2 years before I came home. My daughter was going to be 4. My boys were going to be much bigger. They knew who mommy was, but I missed kindergarten's first words, first steps, stuff that can never be replaced. The system tears you down. It breaks your spirit. It breaks who you are. If you're a compassionate person, a lot of the women don't come out compassionate no more after doing long sentences, because they turn cold and bitter from the way that they're treated, the way that the system is designed.
The bus ride was long. There was just so many women taken away from their families.
Keys and radios. Officers calling in different codes.
Lots of steel doors slamming.
I can remember, I couldn't sleep at night. I guess maybe because I just wanted to hear a normal sound, noises from my kids.
All I needed was some help. Even when I get out of jail, I don't have no place to go to, but back out there in the street. My family didn't want to bother me.
When they come in there and they just rip everything apart in there, and you have to strip down and squat.
At night, all you can hear is people crying. You know, you hear people out on the yard in the day room in the daytime being tough, but at night, all you can hear is crying. Because people want to go home, they miss their family. And some of them ain't never going home, and all you can do is cry with them.
Every time he came, I still had to say goodbye and give him to somebody else who would walk out with him. And it never got any less wrenching to do the goodbyes. And I would cry every time. And I can't even count how many times I would get yelled at by officers for crying. When I first got out, I was totally lost. I didn't know, I had no idea. I really thought my life was kind of over, that this had totally ruined it. And I didn't know how to start up again. It took such a long time to emotionally feel okay. And then I went on public aid, which didn't help at all, because then I was an ex-con and a welfare mother, and you know, that was something still that made me feel bad about myself. Part of my self-identity is that I'm a convicted felon, and that's never going to go away, and that stops me from, you know, I can never be a teacher. I could go back to school now and not get the tax credits that other those higher education tax credits are not. You can't get them if you have a drug conviction. It doesn't matter what amount of time has gone past. The financial aid forms that you fill out to get aid for school ask if you've had drug conviction, and you know, there's a lot of things that that's always going to be because of this mistake that I made. So you're paying and paying and paying in some ways for the rest of your life.
There's a saying, either you're gonna do the time or you're gonna let the time do you. And I did the time. I'm focusing on myself and what needed to be changed, what needed to be addressed, but not with the help of the system. It was the help with other women.
All girls, strippers, ladies of the night,
Whores.
tramps.
Skeezers. Don't forget that. I hate that.
Oh,
Throw Annie.
Pablo Bob. Yeah. Pablo Bob.
The same people that victimize us, we actually want to rescue us. It's not going to change unless we change.
To advocate, fight for rights.
As long as you do prostitution undercover, it's not a crime. But when it comes in front of somebody's door, it's a crime.
Your parents can put you out there. Nobody made me. This was a choice I wanted to.
Sometimes you're forced to do it because you don't have nowhere to stay.
85% of the women leaving the county jail arrested for prostitution. When they left the county jail, they were homeless.
We would like to try to get this bill passed so that the ladies can get some type of help instead of going into the penitentiary.
It has stiffer penalties for Johns who engage in violence toward prostitutes, especially minors.
Treatment instead of jail. Counseling for first-time offenders.
We're trying to get this passed.
Keep an open mind on it.
Yeah, very happy to be the sponsor of this bill.
My voice do count. People do listen.
I didn't believe that, you know, it would be the time that I would be telling my story.
Yeah, I didn't know prostitution was such a problem, actually.
I didn't either.
I have been Chaka Khan, I have been Foxy Brown, I have been so many people, but I've never been Brenda Jean, my birth given name. And I'm just, I'm happy today being just Brenda Jean.
Actually, my birth mother was supposed to have been taking me school shopping. She came and picked me up and she took me to one of her trick houses because he wanted a young girl. And she gave me beer and whiskey because I didn't want to take my clothes off for him. You know, I was a virgin, you know. I didn't want no man looking at me, you know. And I got drunk, and I went on. He didn't touch me, but he took pictures and laid me across his bed. When I left home to go and stay with my mom for a summer, I met her pimp, and we went out to eat, and there was a whole bunch of other pimps, and I ended up being sold to a pimp.
First started when I was 14 years old. I used to work from 45th and Cicero all the way down to Midway.
I cried a lot. I was too scared to run away. But then as time went on and I was being able to make my own decisions and my own choices, I was like, what the hell? You know, she'll come back and get me eventually, you know. But then I guess I got brain locked into what I was doing, you know.
It's hard, you know, it's hard to come back and actually stand and look at where your life could have ended. And it gives me another reason to be more grateful. Because I should have been, you know, I could have been dead a long time ago. I don't believe I spent 26 years of my life out here turning dates, buying somebody else's cars and jewelry that wasn't doing shit for it, you know. Although they was sitting down the street, supposed to been watching my back. Every time I got kidnapped or got raped, they was still sitting down the street and didn't know what the hell was going on with me. You know, just standing here thinking about that, I mean, it hurts, and it hurts bad.
When you first start doing it, it's about all the men's drooling over you, all the men's wanting you because you the new face on the block. It's about that pimp showering you with jewelry, furs, and a car, and you know, all this as long as you're making money. It's the trap.
My worst days right now, I wouldn't trade them in for one of my best days back then. I can't see myself going back. You know, everybody talking about you're not exempt from relapse. Relapse is not even part of my recovery because the pain is still right here. And it'll never go away. Nothing could ever take that away from me. Nothing. I don't know nothing or see anything that's worth me going back and turning a date. Because for me to turn a date is for me to use. And for me to use is for me to die. And I'm not ready to die today.
What my life is now, I have a fiance. These my babies right here. I talk to them at night when I need comfort. I have a lot of peace in my life right now. Me being in the lifestyle at such a young age, I never knew who Lucretia was. But I'm learning about Lucretia today and who she is.
This is 42nd Prairie. This is where I used to get high in this building right here. Me and my two aunties made out our own apartment. I had the first floor, the other one had the second floor, and the other one had the third floor. We used to get in through the back door, even though the police knew that we was like, you know, going inside there. I guess they felt sorry for us because they stopped putting the boards and stuff on the door because they felt sorry for us. And we used to get high in there, we'd take our dates in there. We didn't care. We had bottles like used mattresses and sheets and stuff like that. Put candles up in there so it could seem like it's our own. This is where I used to walk up and down the street. From right there to right there, I walk up and down this block. I done dated all races of men down here. I even dated women down here. I bet she been up for like 3 or 4 days, or more than that. Or more than that. You know what I'm saying? He's a regular date. Him right here in the red car. He's a regular date. She went up for like 3 or 4 days, or probably more than that. You know, that's how I used to be. She's going to get her date.
Yeah.
She's going to get her date. He told her to come right now because he must install the cameras.
We lived in a neighborhood where prostitutes worked on the street, and at night I'd be looking out the window when I was supposed to be in bed, and I'd be peeping at these women in the shiny dresses and the beautiful hair, and they'd be, doing their thing. And I asked my grandmother one day, I said, hey, what are those women doing out there? I said, she said, they getting in and out of cars. She says, well, they get in cars and men give them money. She said to take their panties off. I said, they do what? She said, yeah, because she had told me never to take my panties off for little boys and let the little boys get in my panties. She said, well, men take their panties off and give them money. And I'm not sure she heard me, but I remember saying, wow, I'll probably do that. You see, because that's what had been happening to me. Men had been taking my panties off. And I remember thinking, these women looked so shiny. They had beautiful dresses, and they looked, I didn't know the pain that they were going through then, but they looked glamorous. And I just wanted to be shiny because I felt so bad inside. When I came up, I was a black girl, but I was a very attractive black girl. I was a beautiful black girl. And my color skin wasn't too dark to get into most places. So I could get into a lot of the places, and I was just a shade almost too dark to work in a lot of places where my Caucasian sisters worked. But I got in because I had an exceptional type body. I could work. And I started on a level with escort services. I started with the strip joints. I started with working only inside the bars. My feet never touched the street. But as we go on, you get passed down. You get passed down until you're passed out. And then you're out on the street.
What's up, Bridget? What's up, Heifer? Breezy. I know. Hey! Hi, Boo Boo. We want to rescue you so bad. I know. Okay. Where you at? At Genesis' house now? Yeah, I'm at Genesis' house now.
How's everybody doing tonight?
We're doing fine. How are you?
Oh, what are you guys filming here?
We're doing a video project.
She used to be my wife-in-law.
Really? She's still out here, huh?
She's still out here. And it's just the way it goes. You know what I'm saying? Trick, I dated him back there. And he tried to take his money back. He was a white guy in a Mercedes, which I couldn't understand. Why was he trying to take his money back, right? Mm-hmm. So we started fighting, and I almost got out the car, like right back there. Mm-hmm. And when I tried to get out the car, my clothes caught hold to the door, and he drove off and he drugged me.
Oh, my.
And he drugged me till... When I got through, I had almost... all of this was raw. All of this was just raw. My face was disfigured. I almost lost my eye. And I had been on a spiritual low. You see, I was a girl who, it wasn't about the drugs and the money, because those things I always had, and I always dressed good, and even when I wasn't at my best, I always had great clothes to put on, and so I always lied to myself that everything was okay. But I remember in the inside, I began to feel like crying all the time. I stayed liquored up a lot. I stayed drunk an awful lot, because in order to deal with these situations, I had to have something to drink. I started not liking myself, and I remember looking at girls constantly coming out into prostitution, and how young they were and how young I wasn't. And I started feeling low, and I felt that there had to be, I didn't see anything changing. I didn't see an end to the road. I was stuck in Oz. And so I said, there's nothing sporty about what I'm doing. And I knew I had to get out of it. And after my face got disfigured, it just gave me a validation that it wasn't going to get any better. And it gave me time enough to think about what I needed to do with my life. I have a family. And yes, I'm married. I'm married today. I work with women who are at high risk for HIV, and I love it because a lot of the women who are not even are not in prostitution have a lot of similarities in our life and what we go through as far as giving up power to men. So I relate to the women very well, and I love being able to help women.
Well, great. We're going to welcome our guests onto the screen. Max is going to make that happen. And I would love for each of the three of you to maybe just introduce yourselves, talk about, how you came to be part of this program and sort of how it influenced you, what you did. We can maybe start there.
Well, thank you. My name is Brenda Myers Powell, and I am a survivor leader. I serve on the U.S. Council for Human Trafficking, and I have my own organization called the Ernestine's Daughter. I met a trafficking. I met a human trafficking counselor right now. I ducked in my room so that I could do this panel with you guys because Salome means the world to me. She's an awesome friend and just a great artist in every way. Joanne is a special, special woman in my life. And I think I saw Dr. Olivia here. Did I see Dr. Olivia?
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, wow. This is even better. So she is a special woman in my life. But making of the film was many years for us. And as you can see, I was quite younger. And we were doing such great work at that time with survivors and letting them have a way of telling their stories because no one was listening to the stories. And at that time, they had a lot of rhetoric going around called pimps up, hoes down, and a lot of negative things about women in prostitution and how they were enjoying it. And I thought that was horrible. We wanted to tell our stories. And there was an organization called, still going on, Chicago Homeless for
Coalition for the Homeless.
Coalition for the Homeless, and they called in Salome to run this project, and she was so sensitive to our needs and understanding to who we were. And she put it in our hands to tell our story. She just directed it and gave us her what do you say, attention and guidance on how this should be done, or how we could make a great movie. And she was right there helping us, but she gave the cameras and let us tell our stories, so that we could feel comfortable because no one had trusted us like that. The trust was amazing. So we were able to say what we needed to say in our own words. It was a great time for us. It empowered us, and it made us feel like someone finally listened. Yeah, someone finally listened, and we were able to say what we wanted to say. Not what's depicted of us, or not the, things that people said about us. We were able to say what we needed to say, and that was amazing at that time, because that was years back when all the stereotypes were still floating around, and it was as if we were happy to be out there because what everybody knows it's just sex, right? And that was the thought behind it, and not the things that were happening, the women that were dying, the women that were getting exploited, the how young it was happening. So no one was looking at that time, and we were getting that message out there, and we were happy that we were able to tell stories that some of us had never talked about openly.
I'll go next. I'm Joanne. I got really emotional watching the Voices in Time, the installation. I so wish there was a way we could have preserved that piece, because it was an amazing project where we recreated like a prison cell, and we toured it around. That first time, it said 30 days of art and education. We went to, I think, 5 or 6 different places in 30 days where we did this installation, and people followed it to have the discussion. After seeing it, we would have discussions with the women who participated, and there were people who followed it from one location to the next, and brought their daughters and brought other people, because it was so moving. Like somebody said it in there, a couple of the formerly incarcerated women that came to it actually cried when they went there, because it was so emotional. But actually, I forgot to do introduction first, so I'm going to back up a little bit here. I worked for a long time for Chicago Legal Advocacy for Incarcerated Mothers, and that was how I met Salome and got involved with Beyondmedia, because she worked with us. We did an earlier video too, where we did a long video workshop, and just seeing the way that media, like Brenda said, there were these stereotypes, and here was a way through media to really directly challenge those stereotypes by the people who know what they're talking about, because they're involved. And like both of those projects, the Turning a Corner and the Voices of Time, that's what we did with those. And the scene there with, I think the one thing that stands out the very most to me, I was thinking about this morning. I was with Lucretia when she was outside taping that piece outside Sportsman's Inn, where she said how emotional it was. So incredibly emotional listening to her then. And then when the camera got turned off, she just like took my hand. It reminded me of like, I don't know, it was just really sweet. We held hands walking back to the car, because it was just this intense emotion. And I think like Turning a Corner, Brenda being out on the street, going, like it would have been so different telling those same stories in a room or just in front of the camera, but being in those places, like Brandy being, and then we end up seeing somebody on the street there. There's something about being in that place where the event happened that makes the emotion just be so intense and so alive, that I just always felt, after we had those sessions with the Turning a Corner workshop, it was always hard to sleep that night, because so much went on during those sessions that we had together. People were so deep in talking about what they really felt about everything, and it was really an honor to be part of it, and to have people share like that. And it was just so great then to be able to film it and share it with a lot of people. And that I don't know, I guess I was caught off guard by how emotional it was to watch it again after this much time. It's still right there, so it's great. Okay, Diana, unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. I am Diana Delgado, and I too, how I met Salome and Joanne was I worked for Chicago Legal Advocacy for Incarcerated Mothers as well. Very emotional seeing that. I mean, we all are a lot older, but I relived it for a minute. I relived every second of that. And it didn't end there for me. That was the start of my life spiraling bad, because I ended up behind that incarceration that I went in completely innocent for. When I did come home, I tried to get my life together. I started working for Claim, but I still had a lot of emotional and mental issues, right? And it kept me, I ended up spiraling really out of control into an addiction that led me in and out many more times. And not only did I hurt myself, but I hurt my children behind coming in and out of prison. And my biggest reason for doing this and doing all the speaking events that I do now is because the long-term effects that it has had on my children that are all grown now. I see the impact, because when they sentence the moms, they sentence the kids too. They sentence them, they're sentenced right with us, and they go through so much emotional and mental changes, and they're not addressed, right? Because most of the caretakers don't know how to care for these children, right? Most of them are just, these kids are given to them and they're just have to find their way, as well as these kids. So I'm saying all this to, like, now my kids are grown, I'm a grandmother as well, but I see the long-term effects in their lives on a daily basis. I mean, I have a close, great relationship with them, and only by the grace of God, I finally was able to have my last run with incarceration and with drugs in 2017. So I have 6 years of uninterrupted sobriety, but it took me a long time to get there, and it was not easy. And when I'm telling you, the system strips you of everything. They strip you of everything. They dehumanize you. They make you something you never thought that you could be. And it was the shame, the guilt, like, oh my God, seeing that interview again. And mind you, that was the first time I had ever been into a police station and didn't even know what was going on, right? Only to lead me into a lifelong of more pain and suffering, and my children suffering. And I just think it's so important for the system, for the communities, because most people's outlook on when a woman goes to jail, oh, well, she wasn't a good mother anyways, because if she was, she wouldn't be where she's at, right? So they look at us as, okay, like maybe like that's the best thing for us to be taken from the kids, but that's not the case. I know I take full responsibility for the choices that I made after that fact, and I paid dearly. I didn't hurt nobody more than I hurt myself, right? But I am so grateful and blessed today that I have a different outlook on life, and if I can make a difference in maybe educating people who make the decisions on incarcerating mothers and breaking up these families, then maybe they won't have to go through what my kids go through. Like, one of them was abused really bad while I was gone. Another one of them suffers from depression, like bad. I have another one who and still to this day, and he's my oldest son. He still when he's stressed, he pulls out like his eyelashes. Like, they all dealt with it in different ways. That's stuff that didn't get addressed throughout me being gone. And although, I am present in their life, like, and I am so grateful and honored that they were able to forgive me, and I have the bond and the relationship that I have with them, and I can never take back all the pain and hurt and the suffering that they went through by not having their mother there. And I just think it's really, really important that, again, that the system sees the effects that it has on these kids, and especially for these nonviolent offenses. You have women in the system who shouldn't be there. Like, instead of locking them up and separating the kids from the mothers, let's do something to keep them together, and not make the next generation that's going to go behind them walls. Thank you.
Wow, this has been really powerful already. And I thank you all for your honesty and your experiences sharing with us. I definitely just want to remind everyone that if any of you want to participate, please do. And yeah, I really am struck by the bravery of you all in telling your stories and allowing them to be recorded and shared with other people. And maybe you can talk about how that affected you. And also on the flip side, how did you gain the trust of other women to convince them that, you know, sharing these really hard stories from their lives, like that was going to benefit other people or benefit them? You know, how did you gain their trust in order to, like, that you could tell their stories?
Mhm. Well, I think both Brenda and Diana and I, everybody was already kind of working in that area, working with women incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, women in prostitution, women with addiction. And I guess because we were them, that I mean, I'd say me less than you guys, because I only went in once. And but it was pretty natural. I mean, it didn't seem like it was ever hard to, like, people wanted to share their stories because it helps you to, and for most of us, it was the first time anybody listened with any degree of respect. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, Diane. Exactly, Joanne. That was the main one. As Joanne said, listened and heard them and listened with respect. That was the deal right there.
Mhm.
Nobody was judging them. Everybody had the same kind of similar experiences and could understand what was going on. For the first time, they were in a room full of people who had similar experiences. Nobody was judging. And then we were actually coming up with some solutions at the time for some of the things that we were talking. So we were doing some of the things that needed to be done in that circle was, come together and care about each other.
Mhm.
So, and listen to where no one had listened to us before. We were telling some of the things that we had never told anyone. So that was special. You know what I'm saying? First time I'd ever told anyone this, but you have given me the courage to talk about it. So those are some of the things that were happening in those rooms. Thank you.
And I think too, for being the voice for the ones that didn't have the courage to step up and speak about, you know, the experiences that we've been through, and sharing was and educating, putting a face to these different situations that we go through as women.
Yep, definitely.
Can you just describe what the Voices in Time installation was like? Like, we saw it a little bit in the video, but maybe just like fully, like what the structure was and how you showed it in the different cities or different places and stuff.
Okay, yeah, we those bricks were just made out of, like, I'm sorry, I have a little brain fog from long COVID, styrofoam, and then painted, and then those quotes were quotes from the interviews, and they were stamped, individually stamped with letters on there. We went to DePaul University, Northwestern University, Chase Gallery, Woodson Library, the Center for Inner City Studies at Northeastern University. And there would be the installation, which consisted of the walls. It was a recreation of a women's prison cell. So there was the walls, the bread, property boxes, lots of letters that women contributed that they had written and received while they were incarcerated, journals. And then the interviews running on TV screens. Like, so there was a lot to see. And then at each site, we had a small performance, spoken word, and I think there was some music too, where formerly incarcerated women put on this short presentation performance, and then there'd be Q&A after. It was extremely powerful. It just, it wasn't made for permanence. It was the styrofoam bricks on cardboard or heavy board. It would have been really nice to, because we had offers, people wanted it in other cities, but it would, like, the cost of transporting it was pretty prohibitive, but it was extremely powerful, and it was all put together by formerly incarcerated. That, they brought their uniforms that they had from when they were in it. It had all the real stuff there, and most of the most powerful was the words, and we really got it to a lot of places. It was extremely emotional, I felt like. And like I said, there were people who saw it and saw the discussion at one place and then came to the next site and brought their daughters and asked the women to talk to their daughters. Can you talk to our daughters? They're starting to get in trouble. And we'd have these incredibly beautiful exchanges with the women, just really providing so much support and information to the young women, and saying, don't do this, and here's what you can do instead. It was pretty amazing. And then we did it first time 30 days of art and education on women's incarceration, and then we brought it back again. And Salome's gonna have to help me. I can't remember how many other places it went to, but
we had it 5 places in 30 days.
Yeah.
When it was 30 days. And then after that, it went on for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I can't actually remember how many places, but it traveled around the city in the greater Chicago area for about 3 or 4 years.
But it was incredibly powerful.
And actually, we still have it. It's in storage. I put in the chat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the walls are with the Uptown People's Law Office.
Wow.
Ticket, yeah, and a lot of the ephemera, I have it somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So we only have Diana for another 2 minutes. Do you have any last words, Diana, about anything we talked about tonight, or what the future holds for you, what you're working on now?
Sorry, guys. I am working on a degree right now, human services, majoring in addiction. I plan on to continue. I am a flex staff for a women's shelter in Lake County. I have another full-time job as well, but I have another speaking event. That's why I have to log off from 7 to 8. Just really trying to educate people on the long-term effects that incarceration has on children, and what it's done as well to me by not getting the therapy that I needed while I was in that situation, and even when I came home, because I just kept putting band-aids on it. I self-medicated for many, many, many years, and I'm just really grateful and blessed to be in my right state of mind and be able to speak and share, even though it's very it's sometimes very emotional for me to speak about it, but I feel like my pain can maybe give strength to other women. So I'll continue to do it. I'll scream it from the rooftops right now, because I know that it could possibly make a big difference and even if it's just in one person's life, it's all worth it for me.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight, Diana.
And thank you for having me. Thank you.
Brenda and Joanne, do you have any other comments or want to tell us about your future or present?
Well, I just want to say how happy I am that Media Burn Archive is.
Come on, Joanne, let me get mine in.
Pardon? Oh no, I'm so excited about it because it was so sad. It was a very traumatic thing for Beyondmedia to close.
Oh, no, Joanne. I was just saying, I wanted to get my talk in first, but you
all right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I got to go down here to the event. You guys are so beautiful. And it's like, oh, home week when I'm with you. We did a lot of stuff together. I never will forget Joanne's son in the basement with him singing, because it just was such a family thing when we did this documentary, this movie, this piece of love, I call it, because the whole time it was being done, I think that's what it was considered, a piece of love from all of us, from Salome, from Joanne, from the way that they nurtured us and the way that they cared for the stories and the feelings that us ladies had. From that point on, for me, I felt like there was nothing that I could not do. It was, I was heavy after that, you know what I'm saying? It was like, okay, what's next for Brenda Myers Powell?
Well, you haven't stopped since, so.
And I have not, you know, I had the Dreamcatcher Foundation for 16 years, and now I have a new organization called Ernestine's Daughter, which is this is like a tribute to my mother. You know, one thing about being a survivor and going through trauma, I found out that you always have trauma. It sits with you, and it sits with you for the rest of your life. But you have things that help you get through it. And that's what I have to give to the survivors, of how to get things in your life to get through it, and through the trauma that I've had, and through the tools that you need to get through it. That's what I have to hand down to the survivors and to the awesome people that helped me get through it, like Joanne and Salome, through the things that they give, through therapy, through art therapy, through doing this movie, through having a chance to voice myself, to see myself, and look at myself as a human being. Through these type of things, I grew. And I thank you for that opportunity to watch myself grow and to see myself as who I am and hear my own voice, to hear my voice. That's what you gave me the opportunity to do. And I've been listening to others' voice and hearing my voice ever since. And that's something that is huge. And I hope, and that's why I think that you're saying it was a shame that Beyondmedia had to fold, because that's what they gave. They gave people who didn't have a voice a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
I love you, Joanne. I love you, Salome. I love Diane.
Love you.
And thank you for putting me on my journey to where I am today.
Love you, Brenda.
From Breezy Street to the White House. And who knows where else. But thank you for being some of the women that have helped me through my journey.
Thank you, sweetheart.
I gotta go now because I've gotta go to meet some more survivors. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you.
So what? Oh. No, it's just me. Come on, put other people on here.
Do you want to finish what you were about to what you were starting to say, Joanne?
Just how wonderful it is to have access to these videos again. I mean, actually, I'm getting ready. I'm in the process of moving, and I found all these like VHS tapes of all this stuff that, oh, I don't have anything to watch this on anymore. So it's like really thrilling to know this is still alive. For Beyondmedia and for all the rest of the stuff you do too. I mean, and the other Beyondmedia things, the whole disability series, and like Brenda said, that's what Beyondmedia did. So it was so powerful to see people getting that storytelling media in their own hands and being in charge of it, and what came out from that, how powerful those stories are, rather than a documentary filmmaker saying, you have a great story that I want to tell. You know, that what Beyond Media did was help people tell it themselves. Yeah, Salome, why don't you give a little rundown of like all the things that are in the Beyond Media archive?
Sure. Yeah, I hope I remember, but we had 3 main programs. We had the Women in Prison program, and you saw selection, and it was the main piece is Turning a Corner was a feature-length documentary that came out of like a year-long workshop. All of our, or pretty much all of our videos came out of intensive, many months or even years workshops. We had a pretty extensive disability program. We worked primarily with the empowered FIFIs of Access Living, and we worked with them over a 4-year period. We made 4 or 5 year period with the late great Susan Nussbaum, and we produced 3 short videos, and Teach Beyond Media, where we worked in schools with young people. And then we had Cute in Media. I guess I'm telling you more than Cute in Media, which was all with queer youth, queer, trans youth, and we did a lot of projects with them. I think the really awesome aspect wasn't just we going through these long, intensive, trust building, educational for all of us processes that where we would document the process and create a video out of it, a short video. Usually they were 30 minutes or less. I think Turning a Corner was the only feature length, but after these were produced, they were distributed, and we did massive numbers of in-person screenings where the people that were involved in the making of the film got to facilitate the discussions and facilitate the Q&A. So the sense of authority and expertise that they had the opportunity to build through that experience, and the kind of face-to-face, heart-to-heart contact with audiences, the recognition they received for their work was pretty transformational for all of us. So
can I add something right there, Sal?
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking, in each program, there's people who participated who are still, this many years later, doing activism work in those fields. In the disability, aren't there some of the young women that were in that are still in it, like Real Talk? And it's like, it kind of helped people become activists in a way. Like, how many of the people are still active in those areas? And I think this was a good beginning for a lot of people. Like Brenda said, it was the beginning of near the beginning of her journey. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and we worked in a lot of different mediums. We did installation, we did photo exhibitions, we did a lot of writing. Yeah, whatever medium people wanted to explore, to whatever visual language they wanted to use to tell their stories. It was mostly short documentaries. Are there any questions from this fabulous audience?
Ariel has a question.
Yeah. I was particularly, attracted to the comment that Brenda made about this is family and sort of like old home week, seeing everybody again, and the value of the community that you developed in the process of making the videos, and all the other projects. And it's sort of a question I have is the use of the camera as a tool that it's not a passive tool. I mean, it's an active tool in your circle of creating this work. And I just would like to hear some more comments about sort of how the camera worked. And then we have this work to see 15, 20, 17, whatever number of years later it is.
20. It's 20 years. Yeah, I mean, I'll just talk quickly and then I want to hand it over to Joanne. But one of the things I always, for me, early on was a discovery of the indivisibility of the making of media and the making of relationship, that it's a co-creative process, and that these videos, this work is a representation, a documentation of the relational process that we went through together. So, and we couldn't do the work without that. So that the trust, the familiarity, the intimacy, you know, like having these experiences that could only happen, like it could only happen in that room with those people. So, and I do remember, and Joanne probably remembers too, maybe it was like in 1990 when we were at Grace House.
And at first, everybody, when you talked to them and said, oh, I'd like to do a media workshop, they just looked at you so blank. And then you brought cameras, and that they picked, you said here, you turned them on and you said here. And then they were silly the first day. They were pretending they were Oprah. But having the camera in the hand was so different than you just saying, oh, I'd like to do this media workshop. They looked at you like, what the hell? We're just getting out of prison. We're in a recovery home. What the hell are you talking about? But when they had the cameras, it was a whole different story.
Do you remember, could you tell the story, if you remember, of when we were in the park?
Oh my God, yeah. So they decided they wanted to make a short video aimed at young people so they wouldn't go in the direction toward prison. And they developed this set of questions that they would ask the young people. And we just randomly went out to a park near Grace House where we were, and ran into this group of adolescent girls and had this incredible exchange. They, the girls are saying, they started talking to the young women, and the girls are saying, you all were in prison, all of you? They just like were so interested, and then had this incredible discussion, and the kids were so on top of it. But it was, just this out on the street. And then the next week they decided, let's go out again. And they ran into some young men. One of them turned out to be the son of somebody that a whole bunch of the women knew had been in prison with. And so it was just incredible. Like him described, they had young people whose parents were incarcerated talking about what it's like. But all this was just like, nothing was planned. Oh, let's go they just went out in the street with cameras. They had their questions ready and had these just amazing encounters that were so powerful.
Yeah, I think all of the workshops, because this was before, when we first started Beyond Media, it was like on a shoestring, and it was before it was really kind of, before we needed to depend on funders, let's say, because we were pretty much just like a volunteer organization at the time. And so we just had all the time in the world to do whatever we wanted. We didn't have to produce something in a matter of days. And so we really took our time, and we were on I guess, a journey of discovery. We would just kind of go where the cameras took us. And if nothing much happened one week, we do it again. And we keep going till stuff happened. And, through the process, people built skills and developed comfortability, and, like our relationships deepened. And it's like it couldn't be rushed because it just had to be this way. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Me, it does. Any other questions? Comments? Watch all the videos and then watch them again.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are so honored to have you, Joanne and Salome and Diana and Brenda, who've already left. And thank you to all of you who came. I think this was a really powerful experience. And we're so glad that we got to all share it together. And thank you again to Dana for curating and coordinating this event, and to Max for doing the tech. So good night, everyone, and we hope we'll see you again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Thanks to Media Burn.
Yes.
That's really just so deep.
Yeah.
So important for us.
Bye.